Snow was falling hard the night Grace Carter staggered down the ridge with two children freezing in her arms, only to learn the men hunting her didn't need guns to kill her. They carried contracts, and the law was already written against widows like her. But just when the storm closed in for the final blow, a drunken cowboy stepped out of the dark and whispered one word that changed everything. Safe. What Grace didn't know was that the map sewn inside her daughter's blue doll could expose the richest silver fraud in Grey Rock and get every one of them buried before dawn. Now she has 48 hours to outwalk a blizzard, outthink a corrupt sheriff, and outfight the man who took her husband's life. And the only person standing between her children and the grave is the same cowboy who once worked for the killers. Stay with this story till the end, because not everyone will, and comment where you're watching from. The whip cracked, the driver swore, and the stagecoach rolled away into the white. In 3 heartbeats, the lantern light was gone. Snow closed over the ruts, over the sound, over the last promise that he'd get you ladies into town before dark. Grace Carter stood alone on the mountain road, with 2 children and no road. Wind came off the ridge hard enough to steal her breath. It shoved needles of snow into her eyes and under her collar. The sky and ground had turned the same blind gray. One wrong step could walk her straight off the grade. "Mama," Lily said behind her, "I can't feel my toes." "You keep walking, baby." Grace dragged the wool scarf higher. "Lord willing, we see Grey Rock before your toes notice." Emma didn't answer. Emma's small weight sagged across Grace's shoulders, wrapped in a blanket, and tied to her with a length of laundry line. Now and then the child gave a tearing cough against Grace's ear, then went limp again, breath rattling warm on her neck. Grace turned to the trees, snapped a spruce branch off a low limb, and rammed the butt into the snow ahead. It sank almost to her glove. "Not there," she muttered. She shifted left, jabbed again until the branch hit something solid. Only then did she step. Ditches and frozen creeks lay under that smooth white. One bad foot, and she'd go in hip-deep with a sick child on her back. Behind her, the rope creaked as Lily stumbled, then caught herself. "Hold tight to that rope," Grace said. "If I go down, you pull. If you go down, I drag you out. We're not losing anybody in a drift tonight. You hear me?" "Yes, ma'am." They moved. Grace set the pace. Jab, step, drag. The branch punched test holes through the snowbank. Her boots filled them. Emma's weight bent her forward. Lily walked close, one mitten hooked in the back of Grace's coat, the other gripping the rope tied to her sister. A scrap of sound rode the wind to them. Not wheels. Voices, thin and cracked by distance. Christ the Savior is born. Somewhere below, in a town they could not see, folks were singing around a stove. Grace swallowed. "You hear that, Lord?" she said into the scarf. "You've got your people warm for Christmas. Keep these 2 breathing till I find the door you mean us for." Emma's hand slid loose from Grace's collar. Grace hitched the girl higher, grunting as pain knifed down her spine. She started counting breaths, hers, Emma's, Lily's. When the numbers slipped, she began again. "I'm tired," Lily said. "You can be tired in Grey Rock," Grace answered. "Not here. What if we don't find it?" "We will." She kept her voice flat and sure. "Your papa didn't chase silver and send for us just so his girls could lay down in a snowbank." At Papa, Lily's steps hitched, then steadied. She drew closer, mitten tightening on Grace's coat. Something bumped Grace's hip. She glanced down. The blue cloth doll dragged in the snow, hanging from Emma's arm by one stitched hand. "Lily," Grace said, "take Bluebell before she freezes solid." Lily let go of the coat long enough to grab the doll. Snow crusted its yarn hair, turned the blue cotton pale. As she tucked it under her arm, her thumb slid over a hard ridge under the side seam. "Mama?" "Walk," Grace said. "There's something in her." "In who?" "Bluebell." Lily squeezed the doll again. The ridge pressed against her palm. She didn't feel like this in Denver. Grace's jaw tightened. Her husband had put that doll in Emma's arms the day before he rode out to stake the claim, laughing that a girl ought to have something pretty for Christmas. He hadn't made it back down the mountain. The doll had. Grace had carried it to the funeral and onto the stage. If he'd hidden. The wind slapped snow into her face, sanding the thought away. "Hold on to her," Grace said. "We'll look when we're not busy freezing to death." "How long till town?" Lily asked. "When we see it." Grace drove the branch down again. This time it struck packed earth with a dull thunk. She planted her boot in the hole, feeling snow creep through cracked leather. "Keep your eyes on the right. Driver said when the road bends east, you can see the church steeple." "The driver lied," Lily said. "Yes, he did." Ice and anger burned together in Grace's chest. "But the Lord don't! There's a town, and we're going to stand in it!" The wind rose, howling through the pines. Snow thickened until the world shrank to the length of Grace's arm and the black tip of the spruce branch. For a while, Grey Rock might as well have been on the moon. The only proof it existed was that torn-up hymn and a faint whiff of wood smoke when the gusts turned right. Emma coughed again, a ragged gasp, then nothing. "Emma?" Grace jounced her as best she could without losing her footing. No answer. She stopped just long enough to yank the blanket, tighter around the girl's body. Her fingers burned as they gave up what little heat they had. "Lily, you watch her face," she said. "If her lips go any bluer than that, you tell me." "Bluer than what?" "Than a jaybird. You know blue when you see it." "Yes, ma'am." They pushed on. At last the grade eased under their boots. The trees thinned. The wind dropped enough that Grace could hear her own breath again. The dark ahead was not so dark now. A faint yellow smear hung in the white. Lamplight, fighting the storm. Then another, and another. A crooked string of lights climbing the far side of the gulch. "Look there," Grace said. "That's Grey Rock, Lily." "You sure?" She wanted to say no. Instead, she set the branch, bowed her head against the wind, and stepped off the last drift toward the distant glow. "Lord willing," she said, "we're not too late." Grey Rock wasn't much, just a scatter of lamps clinging to the slope. But tonight, it looked like the gates of heaven. Grace pushed into the wind, boots sinking past her ankles, until the first plank buildings loomed out of the white. A hitching rail, a shutter banging loose, a lantern swaying over a sign that read, "Hotel, Rooms and Beds." "Stay close," she told Lily. "Town's meaner in storms." She climbed the single step, shifted Emma's weight on her back, and hammered her fist on the door. It opened 2 inches. Warmth spilled out. Wood smoke, stew, dry wool, the smell of life. Then a woman's face slid into view, tight as a drum. No vacancies. My child's freezing, Grace said. Please, just the stove, 10 minutes. The woman's eyes flicked to Emma's limp arm, then to Lily's shaking legs. For a second, Grace thought the door might open. Then Emma coughed. A wet, tearing sound ripped out of her and echoed down the hall. The woman recoiled like slapped. Consumption, she hissed. Get away from here, now! She slammed the door hard enough to shake the frame. The latch clicked. A bolt shot home. Lily flinched. Grace didn't. She lifted her hand to knock again. The window beside the door banged open. A thin man poked his head out. You heard her, he snapped. We got boarders. You want us all sick? She's not sick like that, Grace said. Just cold, just needs heat. Then build a fire on the street. The window slammed to. Grace stood still, snow piling in her hair, breath making ghosts in the air. We try the cafe, she said. They crossed the street through knee-high drifts. The cafe windows glowed orange behind fogged glass. Someone laughed inside, sharp and safe. Grace pushed in. Warm air hit them. Every head turned. A man in an apron barked, Door! Close it! Then he saw Emma, his mouth twisted. No kids, he said. She needs broth, Grace answered. I'll pay. With what? He pointed at her torn gloves and the rope cinched around her waist. You ain't got coin for a cup of water. I have this. Grace pulled the last silver $quarter from her boot and laid it on the counter. The man reached, but when Emma sagged sideways and coughed again, he jerked his hand back like the coin was poison. Out, he said, before you bring trouble. Consumption, someone whispered. Chairs scraped. Men drew back. Grace gathered the children and walked out without looking left or right. Snow swallowed them again. A pair of boots thudded behind her. A man weaving drunk came around the corner, bottle swinging from 2 fingers. His coat collar was up, hat low, breath sour. He staggered past them, then halted, turned, and grinned a cracked grin. Well now, he slurred. If it ain't the Morrison widow, heard you were comin'. Grey Rock don't want your kind. Grace tightened her hold on Emma. The drunk pointed upslope with the, bottle. You lookin' for a place to die? Try the old claims. Plenty of holes to fall in. Save the sheriff the trouble. He laughed at his own joke, then wandered off, boots sliding. Lily whispered, Mama, how did he know us? Grace didn't answer. The wind carried the man's voice back faint and ugly. Morrison. Silver. Vane wants it cleaned up. She felt her stomach knot. The sheriff's office was the last hope. A lamp burned behind its frosted window. A badge-shaped shadow moved inside. Grace pushed the door open. Warm air. A stove crackling. Sheriff Talbot sitting behind his desk, boots up, reading a newspaper. He didn't look up. Sheriff, Grace said, my daughter's fading fast. We need shelter. That's so, Talbot muttered. He flipped a page. Town's full. Just the cell. One night. She needs heat. Talbot turned the page slower this time. You from Denver? Yes. That where the coughing sickness is running the rail lines? Talbot's eyes met Grace's at last. Cold. Calculating. Ain't that something? Emma coughed again, weaker, like paper tearing. Talbot stood. Get out my office, he he said flat. I ain't letting no plague into Grey Rock. It's not plague, Grace snapped. Talbot opened the door wide. Snow blasted in. Didn't say it was, he answered. I said I ain't risking it. Lily shrank against her coat. Grace held the sheriff's stare for a heartbeat more. Then she walked out. Snow knifed across the street. Lights blurred. Somewhere a church bell tolled a lonely half-hour. Grace breathed once, steady, and said, We're going to find the livery. Sometimes men with horses got more mercy than men with badges. They trudged past the frozen trough toward the long, low shape of the stable. Warm yellow seeped through its planks. The smell of hay and animals drifted to them like a promise. Grace lifted her hand to knock. A voice inside muttered, You hear what Vane wants? That widow shows up. You don't rent her nothing. Grey Rock ain't crossing the Consolidated Silver Boys. Not at Christmas. Grace closed her eyes. A long second passed. Then she straightened her shoulders, adjusted Emma's weight, and walked toward the next doorway, the only doorway left. Come on, Lily, she said. We buy what they won't give. Behind them, far up the slope, wind sang through the claims like a warning. Grace didn't look back. The livery smelled of hay, old leather, and horses too tired to care about the storm beating on their roof. Grace ducked inside, snow sliding off her shoulders, the wind slamming the door behind them. A lantern hung from a beam. Its circle of light showed a wiry old man pitching straw into a stall. He paused when he saw them. Evenin', he said, voice graveled with age. His eyes dipped to Emma, to the rope across Grace's waist, then up to Lily's shaking hands. You're the widow. Grace didn't waste breath denying it. I need a pack animal, she said. A tough one. The old man set the pitchfork aside. Town said not to sell to you. I'm not asking Town, Grace said. He studied her a long moment. Snow cracked on the roof. Somewhere outside, a shutter tore loose and clattered across the street. You headin' upslope? He asked. Yes. It's Christmas Eve. Yes. He spat into the straw, wiped his mouth with the back of his glove, and looked at Emma again. Her breath rattled like torn cloth. You'll all die up there, he said. Grace's jaw set. We'll die down here too. The old man sighed. Hell. He walked to the far stall. I got a little mountain mare. Mean as sin, stubborn, sure-footed. She'll take you far as a Christian can go in weather like this. How much? He shook his head. Coin ain't what I need. He nodded at Grace's throat. That necklace. Plain gold's plain gold. Grace touched the chain under her collar. Her wedding ring hung from it. The last piece of her husband she still wore. She didn't hesitate. She slid it off, held it out. The old man took it gently, as if he knew what it once meant. He brought out the mare, a small dark creature with ice in her mane. Grace tied her bedroll to the saddle, tucked the 2 pieces of dry wood he offered into her bag, and knotted the last of the rope around Emma so the child wouldn't slip. You got lantern oil? He asked. A little. He rummaged in a crate and handed her a fresh tin. Take it, no charge. Ain't Christian to send a child into the dark without light. Grace bowed her head. Thank you. He grunted. Don't thank me. Thank the Lord if you see sunrise. They stepped back into the storm. Snow hit them like a sheet. The mare planted her hooves and snorted, breath turning to fog. Lily buried her chin in her coat and grabbed the stirrup leather. "Stay on my left," Grace said. "Keep hold of the mare, don't fall behind." "Yes, ma'am." They moved past the last shivering lamps of Grey Rock. Behind them the church bell tolled again, faint, swallowed by the storm. Ahead lay only white. Grace checked the sky. No stars, no moon, no horizon. Just the sound of wind dragging over the ridge like a warning. "Mama?" Lily said. "Is the road safe?" "No road's safe in weather like this," Grace said. "But up is better than back." "Why?" "Vane's men won't come this far in a storm. Consolidated likes warm hands to do their dirty work." "What if they follow?" "They won't." She adjusted Emma's weight. "But if they do, we don't stop." The mare trudged forward, head low, finding the hidden ruts under the drifts. Grace walked beside her, poking ahead with the stick she'd taken from the spruce earlier. The snow swallowed every sound except the whistle of wind and Emma's fading breaths. Once, just once, Grace glanced back. Grey Rock was already vanishing, its lamps smothered by the storm. A flicker of movement caught her eye. A figure, far down the street, hat brim low, watching. Grace's hand found the cold iron of her pistol under her coat. "Lily," she said softly, eyes forward. "Don't turn around." "Is someone coming?" Lily whispered. "Just walk." The mare snorted, uneasy. Wind shifted. The figure blurred, swallowed by blowing snow. The mountain swallowed everything after that. They climbed. Drifts rose to Grace's thighs. Twice she slipped, catching herself on the mare's flank. Emma's weight dragged her sideways. Lily's mitten clamped on the rope like a lifeline. The lantern guttered, went out, then flared again when Grace shielded it under her coat. Minutes bled into more minutes. Then Emma sagged heavier. "Lily," Grace said, breath harsh. "Touch her face." Lily reached up with trembling fingers. "She's cold, Mama." "Keep walking." "She's too cold." Grace didn't let the fear in. "The cabin's near the old mining trail. Once we hit packed earth, we follow the ridge." "How do we know we're close?" "We'll know." She stabbed the stick ahead, hit something solid, and stepped into the hole. Snow whirled around them in spirals. The world narrowed to the mare's snorting breath and the dim lantern glow trembling over white nothing. "Lord," Grace whispered, "you brought us this far. Bring us the rest." The wind shifted again, and somewhere above, just for a heartbeat, the smell of pine smoke drifted down the slope. Grace lifted her head. "There," she said. "Someone's burning wood." "Is it the cabin?" "It'd better be." She tightened the rope on Emma, leaned into the wind, and drove her boots toward the faintest trace of heat in the frozen dark. "Come on, Lily," she said. "Night's not getting any kinder." The trail vanished twice before they found it again. The wind carved it off the mountain like a knife scraping icing from a cake. Grace jabbed her stick ahead, forcing each step, listening for the hollow thud of a drift that could swallow them whole. Emma's breathing had gone shallow, small, quick, bird-like. "Just a little more," Grace told her, though the child couldn't hear. A gust screamed down the slope. Then, Lily gasped. "Mama, someone's walking up there." Grace froze. The lantern guttered in her hand. Snow swirled thick, but Lily was right. A shape, tall, broad-shouldered, moved along the ridge above them, a darker shadow against the storm. He paused, turned, looked straight down at them. Grace's hand went to her pistol. The mare tossed her head, snorting steam. The figure started down. "Lily," Grace said quietly, "behind the mare." Lily obeyed, clutching the saddle leather. The man descended the slope with a sure, practiced stride, boots finding edges Grace couldn't even see. When he stepped into the lantern's weak circle, the storm caught his coat, whipping the hem sideways. He stopped 10 feet away, hat pulled low, collar high, snow crusting his shoulders, hollows under his eyes, like whiskey had lived there a long time. "You're off the trail," he said. His voice was low, rough. "Another 30 yards, and the ground gives way." Grace didn't lower the pistol. "You following us?" "No," he said. "I heard the mare." He nodded at Emma. "And the cough. What do you want?" "To keep you from dying in a hole." He took one slow step back, showing his hands empty. "There's a freeze crack just ahead. You walk it blind, you fall straight through." Grace jabbed the snow with her stick. The branch sank so fast she nearly lost it. The man reached down, picked up a rock the size of a fist, and tossed it toward the darkness. Nothing. Then, 5 long seconds later, a faint, distant thump, deep, wrong, far below. Lily clutched Grace's coat. "Mama!" Grace's jaw worked once. Then she holstered the pistol. "Fine," she said. "Lead." The man nodded, turned, and moved along a narrow stretch of wind-packed snow. Grace followed, dragging the mare. Lily stayed close. He led them off the false grade onto firmer earth, then into the lee of a boulder where the wind didn't scream quite so loud. "Storm'll get worse," he said. "Cabin's half a mile. Fire's still going. You heading for the mines?" "We're heading for shelter," Grace answered. He didn't argue, just started walking again. The mare pushed after him, trusting where Grace couldn't. Once they hit a bend in the ridge, the wind dipped enough that the lantern glowed steadier. The stranger glanced back at them for the first time. "Name's Hart," he said. "Cole Hart." Grace didn't give hers. He didn't seem to mind. He pulled ahead, boots silent under the moan of the storm. "Cabin's not mine," he called over his shoulder. "Old survey shack." "We don't care whose it is," Grace replied. "You will if the owner comes back." Grace tightened her grip on the rope around Emma. "We just need heat." Cole stopped for half a heartbeat, turned slightly. "There's heat," he said. "And there's trouble." Shacks had both. Grace didn't slow. "Trouble's already found us." Cole studied her a moment, snow drifting between them. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition, maybe, but he didn't name it. He faced forward. "Stay close," he said. "Ridge kicks left. Miss it, and you'll be walking on air." He was right. When they reached the turn, the wind tore sideways, nearly knocking Grace off her feet. Cole grabbed the mare's bridle and steadied her. He didn't touch Grace. He didn't need to. The path narrowed. Snow piled over the cliff's lip, forming soft traps. Cole's hand shot out once, stopping Lily before she stepped off the edge. "Watch your feet," he muttered. "Mountain don't forgive." They pushed through the last stand of pine. Then, through the blowing dark, a faint orange flicker appeared, small, steady, defiant. "Fire," Lily whispered. "Cabin," Cole said. He broke into a quick stride. Grace followed, fighting the drag of Emma's weight. The mare lunged forward, eager for warmth. The shack appeared like something carved from the storm. Crooked roof, one boarded window, chimney coughing sparks. Cole reached the door, shoved it open with his shoulder. "Get inside," he said, "before the ridge takes you." Grace didn't argue. She led Lily through, ducked under the lintel, and stepped into a world of rough plank walls and blessed heat. Snow melted instantly off her coat. Cole followed, stamping snow from his boots. He shut the door, slid the iron bolt, and hung the lantern on a peg. He nodded at a pile of blankets near the stove. "Set the little one there," he said. "I'll get more heat up." Grace didn't thank him. She moved fast, untied Emma, laid her by the stove, pulled the child's wet mittens off. Lily knelt beside her. Cole knelt at the firebox, feeding split wood with the methodical calm of a man who'd done it his whole life. The storm roared against the walls. Inside, for the first time that night, there was warmth. And as Grace knelt beside Emma, she caught the briefest smell under Cole Hart's coat. Whiskey, sharp and old. A warning. A history. A hook. "Mama," Lily whispered. "Why was he on the mountain?" Grace didn't answer. Outside, wind howled like something hunting. Inside, Cole Hart struck the iron poker against the stove, sending a shower of sparks up the chimney. "Fire's good," he said without looking up. "Storm won't kill you tonight." He paused. "Tomorrow's another question." The stove rattled as Cole fed another stick into the iron mouth. Flames licked up, brightening the cramped shack. Heat spread slow, like it had to fight the storm, clawing at every crack in the walls. Grace stripped Emma out of her wet coat, rubbing the child's arms briskly with a scrap of wool. Emma's skin felt like chilled clay. "Lily," Grace said, "lift her head." Lily did, hands trembling. Cole stood, brushing ash off his palms. "She needs warm air, not steam. Let her breathe this first." Grace didn't look at him. "I know what my child needs." Cole didn't argue. He dragged a crate near the stove, sat, and watched the flames. The mare thumped her hoof outside the door. The wind tried its best to pry the shack apart. Grace checked the seams around the window board. "This place looks ready to fall." "It won't," Cole said. "I patched most of it last fall. Hunters use it." "Hunters like you?" He didn't smile. "No. Men with steadier hands." Grace didn't have time to unravel that. Emma coughed again. Dry, thin. Lily wiped her sister's mouth with the hem of her sleeve. Cole rose, crossed to the corner where a rolled tarp sat. He shook it open, then spread it under the window, blocking the worst of the draft. "You plan on staying till the storm passes?" he asked. "We plan on staying till she can stand," Grace replied. "Storm will take another day at least. Then another day we stay." Cole nodded, as if ticking something off in his head. He crossed to his saddlebag on the table. From it he pulled out a leather strap and a bottle, brown glass, half full, the kind of whiskey that kept a dying man from freezing. Lily stiffened. Grace's hand hovered an inch from her pistol. Cole didn't drink. He looped the strap around the bottle's neck, tied it, walked to the door, and hung the bottle outside on a peg, out of reach, in the blistering cold. Lily whispered, "Why'd he do that?" Grace answered, "Because he doesn't trust himself." Cole shut the door, sliding the bolt. "Whiskey don't help in storms," he said. Makes a man stupid. I need to be smart. He moved back toward the stove, but stopped when something blue near Emma caught his eye. The doll. Bluebell lay on the plank floor, half buried in melting snow, one seam split open along the ribs. A sliver of waxed paper glinted inside. Cole crouched, picked up the doll, turned it over once. Then he gently pressed the seam. The paper shifted. "What's this?" he asked. "Not yours to touch," Grace said sharply. She snatched the doll from him, stuffed it under her coat, and turned her back. Cole stayed crouched a second longer than necessary. When he rose, his face had changed. Set harder, eyes colder, like a man who'd seen a ghost wearing handwriting. "I've seen that kind of seal," he said quietly. "Consolidated Silver uses it on all their survey documents." Grace didn't answer. "I've seen it," he repeated, voice heavier. "Before your husband died." The storm slammed the wall as if punctuating the sentence. Lily looked up. "Mama?" Grace kept her breathing even. She pulled Emma closer to the stove, tucking the blankets tight. Cole returned to the fire, poking at the embers, but his movements were slower now. After a long silence, he said, "You carrying something men'll kill for. That seal don't travel alone." Grace didn't turn around. "We're not speaking of this again." Cole shrugged one shoulder. "Your choice, but Vane's boys know you're here. Storm won't keep them out long." That landed like a dropped hammer. Grace stood, checking the latch on the door for the 10th time. "We're not leaving until she's warm." "And when she is?" "Then we go up," Grace said, "to Morrison Claim." Cole's head snapped toward her. "You don't want to do that." "We don't have choice." "You got plenty of choices," Cole said. "Just none of 'em easy." He rose, crossing the room to the woodpile. "Look, there's a spring behind the cabin. Good water. I'll fetch some. You keep the fire going. Don't let her sleep too deep." He opened the door. Wind roared in. Snow followed. Before stepping out, Cole hesitated. "You trust me to come back?" he asked. Grace didn't blink. "I trust the Lord to send who he needs." A beat. Cole nodded once and stepped into the storm, pulling the door shut behind him. The shack fell quiet except for the stove's hiss. Lily leaned close. "Mama, if that paper is from Papa, what does it mean?" Grace touched the doll under her coat. The wax seal pressed against her palm. Cold, hard, foreign, dangerous. "It means," Grace said, steady and sure, "we keep moving." Outside, something howled across the ridge. Not wind this time, but something riding on top of it. A warning. A consequence. A promise. Grace held Emma tighter. The fire crackled, throwing shadows across the plank walls. Tomorrow would be worse. She could feel it in the cold under her nails. But tonight, just tonight, the fire held. Cole returned before dawn, boots soaked, coat frozen stiff. He shut the door with his shoulder, snow sloughing off him like shards of glass. "Storm's lifting," he said. "Tracks'll show soon." Grace didn't like the sound of that. Tracks meant men could follow. Men who shouldn't. Emma slept by the stove, her breath thin but steady. Lily sat close, chin tucked in her scarf. Cole hung his coat on a nail. "You got maybe 2 hours before someone comes looking." "Let them look," Grace said. "We're not running. You'll wish you had." Before Grace could answer, the mare outside nickered, a sharp warning note. Hoofbeats followed, more than one, slow, deliberate. Lily stiffened. "Mama!" Grace drew her pistol. Cole's jaw tightened. He moved toward the window board and peeled one edge just enough to see out. He closed it fast. Too late. A fist pounded the door. 3 polite knocks. Grace froze. She recognized that rhythm. The kind men in fine coats used, gentle but claiming ownership. Cole murmured, "Don't shoot till you see what's on the porch." They brought law. Grace lifted Emma into Lily's arms. "Stay behind the stove." The fist knocked again. This time a voice followed, smooth, warm, well-fed. "Mrs. Carter," it called. "Open up, please." Grace's spine hardened. Clayton Vane. Consolidated Silver. Man with half the territory in his pocket, and the other half kneeling to stay alive. Cole's voice dropped so low only Grace heard it. "Let me stand in front." "No," she said. "He knows me, not you." Grace slid the bolt back. Wind slammed the door open an inch before she caught it. Vane stood on the porch beneath a wide black hat dusted with snow. His coat was wool, fine enough to mock the entire storm. A silver-handled cane hung at his wrist. Beside him stood Sheriff Talbot, badge shining dully. Behind them, Cal Pike, lean, mean, and sober this time. "Mrs. Carter," Vane said, smiling like a pastor greeting a late parishioner. "May we come in out of the cold?" "You may not." Vane chuckled pleasantly, as though she'd made a joke. "I admire a woman who guards her threshold. But this is business. Business should be warm. Say what you came to say." He nodded once, baring perfect white teeth. "Fair enough." He reached into his coat, slowly, theatrically, and withdrew a folder sealed in oilskin. "A purchase offer," Vane said, "for the Morrison claim." Grace didn't take it. Talbot stepped forward. "Best look it over, ma'am. Terms are generous." "Terms are theft," Grace said. Vane didn't blink. "Your husband died in an unfortunate accident. Claims without active operation revert quickly. I'm offering a chance at stability." Grace's fingers tightened on the pistol at her side. Vane saw it, and smiled more. Now. No need to be dramatic. I'm not here with guns. I'm here with a contract." He tapped the Tim folder. "You sign. We escort you to town. Warm beds. Medicine for the little one." His eyes flicked past her shoulder, toward Emma. That tiny movement was the first true threat. Cole stepped into view, silent as iron. Talbot stiffened. Pike's hand dropped to his belt. Vane, to his credit, didn't move at all. "Mr. Hart," he said mildly, "didn't expect to see you playing nursemaid." Cole didn't answer. Vane continued. "The offer expires in 48 hours. After that, the dispute board will assign ownership based on operational capability. I assume you don't want to lose the claim without compensation." Grace said nothing. "And," Vane added, "weather kills faster than lawyers." Cole's hand hovered near his revolver, but he didn't touch it. He wasn't giving Vane the spectacle he wanted. Vane held out the folder to Grace again. "Take it. Read it. No pressure." Grace didn't raise her hand. Vane lowered his. "Very well. 48 hours. Mrs. Carter, I advise you to consider the children. These mountains are unforgiving. His smile thinned. Accidents happen. The phrase dropped into the freezing air like a stone. Cole inhaled sharply. Lily clutched Emma tighter. Vane tipped his hat. Gentlemen. Talbot followed. Pike lingered half a second too long, eyes settling on Lily, mapping her fear, then turned away. Their bootsteps faded into the storm. Grace shut the door. Bolt slid home like a shot. Silence hung for a breath. Then Cole said, "They'll be back." Grace set the pistol on the table. "Let them." "You don't understand," Cole said quietly. "Vane never asks twice. Next time he won't knock." Grace looked at Emma, pale, still, breath rattling. "We have 48 hours, Grace said. We use them." Cole scratched at the stubble on his jaw. "What's in that doll, Mrs. Carter?" Grace didn't answer. He stepped closer, voice low so Lily couldn't hear. "Whatever your husband left, Vane wants it gone, and he'll come for it." Grace pulled the blue doll from her coat and held it close, seam split, wax paper still hidden inside. "We're not running from him," she said. Cole nodded. "Then the mountain won't be your biggest problem." The wind battered the cabin again. Snow sifted down from the rafters. Grace checked the door, the latches, the window board. 48 hours, and Vane only knocked once. Dawn didn't bring peace. It brought clarity. Too much of it. The storm thinned enough for the ridge to show its teeth. The cabin shivered in the wind, boards creaking like an old man's bones. Cole tightened the cinch on the mare, while Grace wrapped Emma tighter in the quilt. The child's breaths came warm now, but shallow. "You got 2 days," Cole said. "Maybe less. Vane's riders'll sweep the ridge again by noon." Grace checked the bolt on the door for the 3rd time. "Then we stay moving. You'll freeze movin' blind." She didn't answer. Cole exhaled, frost curling from his beard. "Then you learn to move right." He dragged a stick through the snow outside, drawing a rough map, ridge lines, gulches, windbreaks, fast, precise. "First lesson," he said. "Snow lies. Mountain don't." He jabbed the stick at a wind pocket. "If the top looks smooth, the bottom's probably hollow." Grace knelt beside the map, memorizing it as he drew. Lily watched from the doorframe, hands tight on Bluebell. Second lesson came just as fast. Cole stepped back, grabbed a fistful of dirt from a patch near the cabin, and tossed it into the wind. The dust veered left, sharply. "That," he said, "is where they'll come from." "How do you know?" Grace asked. "Because that's where I'd come from." He rose and strode to the woodpile. "Lily," he called, "come here." The girl stepped forward, wary but obedient. Cole handed her 3 pieces of broken tin, old ration lids. He tied them with string, knotted fast. "Hang these around the cabin perimeter," he said. "High enough that snow won't swallow them. When someone steps on a drift wrong, the tins'll rattle." Lily looked at the makeshift alarm like it was treasure. "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir," Cole muttered, turning away. Grace watched him work. Efficient, mechanical, like a man who'd drilled these routines through other winters, other storms, other dangers. He returned to the map. "Last thing before you move, the dead ground." He tapped a cross-hatched section. "You walk there. You'll be visible to half the ridge. Meaning? Meaning Vane's boys can pick you off without ever getting close. Grace's jaw locked. We're not dying on this mountain. That depends, Cole said, on whether you listen. He wiped the map with his boot, erasing every line. Now show me the trail back to the claim. Grace hesitated, then crouched, dragging a new line with the stick exactly where he'd shown her earlier. Cole gave a short nod. Good. Emma coughed, a small, dry bark. Grace immediately moved to her, pressing a warm cloth against her back. The girl sagged into her arms. Cole's eyebrows pulled tight. She's worse. Grace pulled Emma closer. She'll hold. No, Cole said. She won't. He stepped back, rubbing his hands together to warm them, though the gesture looked more like a man wrestling with something inside himself. Grace, he said quietly, there's something I need to tell you. Grace didn't look up. If it's about Vane, save it. It's about your husband. That froze the air. Lily turned her head, eyes sharp. Cole cleared his throat once. Years back, I did escort runs for Consolidated Silver, freight, survey gear, led a few teams into the gulch near Morrison Claim. Grace's hands stopped moving. I didn't know what the shipments were for. Didn't ask. Cole swallowed hard. But I know someone used our tracks to mark safe ground. Someone who shouldn't have. Grace finally rose, slowly. Say it plain. Cole met her eyes, nothing hiding. It's possible. I guided the crew that scouted the tunnel where your husband died. Silence hit harder than wind. Lily looked from Grace to Cole like watching a fuse burn. Grace's hand hovered near her pistol. Cole didn't move. You brought them to him, Grace said flatly. I didn't know, Cole answered. You led them. I led a route, not a murder. Emma groaned softly. The sound cracked the tension, if only a little. Cole stepped back, palms open. You want to shoot me, but that won't keep Vane off your back. Grace didn't raise the pistol. Instead, she turned back to Emma, checked her breath, touched her forehead, wrapped the quilt tighter. Her movements sharp, efficient, focused. Mama? Lily whispered. What do we do? What they always did. Survive. Grace didn't answer Lily. She looked at Cole instead. You said 2 days. Yes. Then we used them. Every minute. Cole nodded. Relief not showing but settling under his shoulders. Then we start now. That was when Emma coughed again, a rattle deeper than before. Grace lifted her at once. Cole crossed the room in 2 steps. Let me see her. Grace almost refused. Almost. Then Emma's chest hitched. She handed the child over. Cole laid Emma near the stove, placed a warm cloth across her chest, and pressed his ear to her back. Her lungs are closing. She needs heat, medicine, and air that isn't full of mountain ice. Where? Grace asked. Oir camp, Cole said. Jun Chen can treat her. He stood. But you go down that hill, Vane will file you as abandoned property. He'll take the claim by noon. Grace didn't blink. Then we choose the child. Cole nodded once. Good. That's the only choice worth making. He grabbed his coat, checked his revolver, and slung the saddlebag onto his shoulder. Get ready, he said. Storm's thin, but trouble ain't. Lily looked at the tins rattling faintly in the wind, then back at the doll clutched to her chest. Is someone coming? She asked. Cole opened the door a crack. Snow blew sideways into the cabin. He scanned the ridge. Not yet, he said. Then, quieter. But they will. They left the cabin before the sun broke the ridge. Cole led, boots cutting sharp tracks through the thinning storm. Grace followed close, Emma bundled against her chest, quilt tight, breath rattling weak against her collarbone. Lily trudged behind, gripping the mare's reins and the blue doll both. The cold had teeth now, not a blizzard's rage, but the quick, biting kind that robbed warmth one finger at a time. We head for Oar, Cole said without turning. Straight down the cut, no ridges, no lookout points. Grace kept moving. How far? 2 hours if she doesn't stop breathing. He wasn't guessing. He'd heard the sound in Emma's lungs. They'd gone maybe half a mile when a shout echoed up the slope. Ho! A figure crested the switchback, small, wiry, wrapped in a patched coat. Miguel Soriano. His horse skidded to a stop on the narrow shelf. Cole, he called. You got trouble behind. Cole waved him down fast. Quiet. Miguel dismounted and hurried to them. Señorita, the doctor's on the trail. She came when I told her what the niño sounded like. June? Cole asked. Miguel nodded. She brought tinctures. Said the child wouldn't make it another night. As if summoned, another figure approached. A short woman in a thick brown coat, face wrapped to the eyes. Dr. June Chen. She knelt beside Grace without introduction. Let me see her, June said. Grace hesitated only a breath, then lowered Emma into June's arms. June pressed her ear to Emma's back, listened, adjusted the child's chin, listened again. Then she stood. She's in pulmonary constriction, June said. Cold in the lungs, fluid already forming. She looked at Grace without blinking. If you keep climbing, she dies by sundown. Lily's breath hitched in the air. Grace's hands tightened on the quilt. And if we go down? June didn't soften. Then she might live, but she'll need warm shelter, broth, tincture, and constant heat for 24 hours. Cole shifted his weight. But going down means, I know what it means, June cut in. She turned to Grace again. You can't have both the mine and the child today. Choose. The wind slid along the ridge like a blade. Grace felt it cut deeper than cold. Lily looked up. Mama? Grace looked at Emma instead. Skin pale, lips faint blue, chest moving too fast for breath that thin. There was no choice at all. We go to Oyer, Grace said. Cole didn't argue. He nodded once, sharp, like he'd been waiting for her to say it. June handed Emma back carefully. Keep her upright, tilted forward when she coughs. If she goes limp, you tell me immediately. Miguel stepped up. I know a shortcut. Cuts off half an hour. Then ride, Cole said. We're burning daylight. They started down. The slope dropped fast. The trail narrowed until only one could pass at a time. Cole took point, checking every patch of ground before letting Grace follow. Halfway down, they reached a gorge. Wind funneled through it, knifing sideways. Emma wheezed. Grace pressed her closer. Hold on, sweetheart. Hold on. June moved beside them, adjusting the cloth over Emma's mouth. Warm air, not cold. Don't let her breathe the wind. They crossed the gorge, the path leveled, widening enough for Miguel to ride ahead. Cole slowed, scanning the ridge above. Grace noticed. Cole? He didn't look at her. Storms lifted too clean. If Vane's riders were waiting, they'll see us now. Lily tightened her grip on the mare's reins. Are they coming? Not yet, Cole said, but he didn't put his hand far from his gun. Down the next bend, the mining road came into view, packed earth under a thin crust of snow, leading toward the cluster of tents and shacks that made up OR camp. Grace could smell coal smoke, hear hammers ringing, hear life. Almost there, June said. Keep her warm. The camp grew larger as they approached, steam rising from cookpots, men stirring from bunkhouses, wagon wheels crunching frost. But it was the sight of the infirmary tent, big canvas, stovepipe smoking, that made Grace's knees weaken. Safety, maybe. Until Cole said low, Grace, once we step inside, the clock starts. She looked at him. 48 hours? Less, he said. Vane'll file a claim abandonment the moment word reaches him you left the ridge. Grace didn't stop walking. Then he can file whatever he wants, she said. I'm not burying another child. They reached the infirmary. Miguel held the flap open. June gestured sharply. Inside, now. Grace stepped in. Heat washed over them, wet, coal thick, blessed. She laid Emma on the cot, June cleared, hands steady despite the fear climbing her spine. Outside, Cole stood at the entrance, scanning the horizon. Smoke on his breath, jaw set. Not a man looking at safety, a man calculating enemies. June administered tincture, warm broth, and a heated brick wrapped in cloth beneath Emma's feet. The child's breathing slowed, but didn't ease. Grace didn't sit. Lily didn't blink. Miguel didn't leave. Cole didn't look away from the trail. Finally, June stepped back. She'll hold, but she's not out of danger. How long? Grace asked. 24 hours minimum. Cole cursed under his breath, a soft, tired sound. Grace, he said, you stay here. I'll take the evidence down the rail spur, get it to the telegraph, to the papers. Grace stared at him. Alone? You can't leave Emma, Cole said, and Vane knows it. He wasn't wrong. Lily clutched Bluebell tighter. Mama, will he come here? Grace touched Lily's cheek. He already is. She looked at Cole, at June, at Emma, where she was needed most. Go, Grace said. Take the proof. Don't stop for anything. Cole nodded, though. The weight of it bent him. He slung the saddlebag across his back, checked his revolver, and stepped out into the cold. Grace watched him through the tent flap. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. He was already running, straight toward Vane's line of fire, and she was standing still, caught between two wars, one legal, one life. Coal smoke hung heavy over OR camp, thick enough to sting the eyes. Hammers rang against steel rails. Steam hissed from a cracked boiler. Men moved quick, tired, hungry. Nothing about the place suggested safety, only motion. Grace didn't sit once in the hour after they arrived. June worked Emma like a battlefield medic, checking breath, adjusting blankets, rubbing warmth into limbs. Lily stood at her mother's elbow, clutching the blue doll, watching every breath like it could vanish. Outside the infirmary tent, the camp shifted. News traveled fast in mining towns, and a sick child carried by a woman from the Morrison Ridge carried faster. Every set of eyes that passed the tent flap looked, lingered, then moved on. Not because they cared, because they knew Vane would care. Grace stood beside the cot, hands cramping from holding the quilt tight around Emma's shoulders. June dripped a measure of tincture between Emma's lips. The girl swallowed weakly. "She'll stabilize," June said, "if the fever doesn't climb by nightfall." And if it does? June's answer was a soft, blade-sharp, "Then you'll need a miracle." Grace nodded once. "Then we pray for one." June didn't pray, but she didn't argue either. A rustle at the tent flap drew Grace's attention. Miguel stuck his head in. "Senora, Cole reached the ridge road. He's moving fast." Grace's hands tightened. "Did he see riders?" Miguel hesitated. "He saw dust. Could be anyone." Which meant Vane's men. Grace inhaled once, steadying herself. "Did he take the map and the letter?" Miguel nodded. "Said to tell you, if I don't come back, the truth will." June snorted softly. "He's either very brave or very stupid." "Both," Grace said. Emma coughed, deep rattling. June kneeled instantly, lifting the child. "Forward. Don't let her choke." Grace held Emma upright while June patted her back. The coughing eased. A small ribbon of breath escaped. June set her back down. "She needs heat, broth, and calm. Nothing else." Grace added fuel to the stove inside the tent. Small motions. Precise. Mechanical. The ground outside trembled. Wagons moving, boots pounding. The whole camp beginning its day under the rule of consolidated silver. A foreman stepped into view. Broad, scarred, eyes like stone. He nodded at Grace. "Word is you came off Morrison Ridge," he said. "Bad place to be right now." Grace didn't look up. "I know. You hear the sheriff filed a notice?" He crossed his arms. "Says the claim's abandoned by non-operational party. Standard procedure." "Standard theft," Grace said. June looked at the foreman. "She's not signing anything. The child's sick." The foreman shrugged. "Paperwork don't care." Miguel hissed in Spanish under his breath. Grace asked, "When does the notice take effect?" "Depends if Vane pushes it." The foreman scratched his beard. "Maybe tonight. Maybe sooner." A clock started ticking in the back of Grace's mind. Not Vane's 48 hours. Something worse. A legal deadline she couldn't bargain with. June leaned closer. "Grace, you can't walk out of here today. Emma won't make it 10 steps." Grace knew. God help her, she knew. But the law wouldn't pause for sickness. Vane's men wouldn't either. Outside, a whistle blasted from the rail spur, sharp, urgent. Grace stepped to the tent flap and looked out. A wagon rattled into camp. A deputy rode alongside. He carried paper in his hand and authority in his shoulders. Miguel swore. Vane moved fast. The deputy dismounted and strode toward the foreman's shack. Men watched him pass, some stepping aside, some bowing their heads. Grace watched every step. June murmured, You need evidence in the hands of someone Vane can't buy. Cole's going to the Telegraph, Grace said. Denver papers, governor's office. Then pray he makes it, June said. Because if he fails... They both looked at Emma. Grace didn't blink. He won't fail. A shadow slipped across the tent opening. Miguel leaned in again. Senora, the deputy's asking for you. Lily's breath hitched. Grace tightened her coat, checked the hidden inner pocket where the second copy of the letter pressed against her ribs. Tell him to wait, she said. Miguel shook his head. He ain't waitin'. Says he has legal business. June looked at Grace. If you leave, even for 5 minutes, Emma could worsen. If I don't, Grace said quietly, Vane takes the mine. Microhook, moral blade, 2 futures, 1 choice. Grace touched Emma's cheek. I'll be back before her next breath. June grabbed Grace's arm. Don't trust anyone in this camp. They report to whoever pays first. Grace pulled free gently. Then the Lord walks with me. She stepped outside. The wind had changed direction, carrying smoke south, carrying news north. She saw the deputy waiting, papers tucked under his arm, and behind him, at the far edge of camp, dust rising. Riders. Grace set her jaw. Cole was out there somewhere, running for the Telegraph. She was here, holding a war by the edges. Mrs. Carter, the deputy said, lifting the papers, we need to discuss the Morrison claim, now. Grace didn't look at the papers. She looked at the ridge, at the dust, at the storm she knew was coming. Then she said, make it quick. Cole hit the ridge road at a dead run. The storm had thinned to nothing but cold air and open sky, clear enough to see trouble coming a mile away. And trouble was coming. A thin line of dust rising behind him, too steady to be wind, too fast to be harmless. Pike, Cole muttered. Vane sent the snake. He kicked his horse harder. The mare lunged, hooves cutting frozen dirt. The telegraph shack lay 2 ridges over, just close enough to reach, just far enough to die on the way. He kept one hand on the saddlebag. The letter. The map. The proof. Truth weighed less than a pound, but men were riding to kill for it. Down in Oir camp, Grace stood stiff before the deputy. The man held out the notice, voice flat, legal, cold. Your presence is required for verification of abandonment, Mrs. Carter, he said. If you've left the claim unattended, Consolidated is within its rights. Grace cut him short. I have a child fighting for breath. That doesn't alter the statute, he replied. Grace didn't blink. Then write this down. We're returning to the claim. A statement of intent is insufficient. We're returning, she repeated. The deputy hesitated, just long enough for Miguel to jog up, eyes wide, breath showing in sharp bursts. Senora, Lily, she ran out to get water. She hasn't come back. Grace's blood iced. Where? She asked. Miguel pointed toward the north well. 5 minutes ago, I turned. She was gone. Grace started running. The deputy shouted behind her. Mrs. Carter, this is official business. Grace didn't slow. She hit the well yard fast, boots slipping on the frozen mud. The bucket lay tipped over. Blue doll ribbon lay torn beside it. Grace's voice broke out of her chest like a shot. Lily! A figure stepped from behind the water barrels. not a miner, not a healer. Cal Pike. Hat low, coat open enough to show the revolver tucked easy at his waist. And Lily held in his arm, one hand clamped over her mouth. Grace drew her pistol so fast the barrel sang. "Let her go," she said. Pike's grin stretched slow. "Sheriff wants a conversation. Says you ain't being reasonable over that little patch of dirt." Grace kept the gun locked on him. "Let her go." "Or what?" Pike asked. "You gonna shoot through the girl? Vane says you're a decent mama. Don't spoil that now." Lily's eyes brimmed, silent, terrified, but fierce. Grace's hands trembled only once. Miguel emerged behind her, but she lifted one finger. "Stay back." Pike shifted his grip on Lily. "Bring the papers, Mrs. Carter. Sheriff's waitin'. You sign, you get the kid back." Grace felt something inside her go very still. "Where?" she asked. "Exchange Point," Pike said. "Old survey post, ridge above the smelter. Sheriff'll be there. Vane, too. They figure it's neutral enough." Grace didn't lower her pistol. "You touch her," Pike chuckled. "Not my job to touch. My job's to deliver." He backed away, dragging Lily with him. Grace moved forward step by step, gun steady. Pike raised his free hand. "You follow now. I drop her down the gorge and say she slipped." He nodded at the bucket. "Accidents happen." The words sliced Grace like a blade. The same phrase Vane used, the same lie they stamped over graves. Pike started retreating into the trees behind the well yard. Lily's mittens scraped the ground, trying to cling to anything. Grace's breath locked. "Lily!" she called. Her daughter twisted, trying to look back, but Pike yanked her forward and disappeared into the timber. Miguel grabbed Grace's arm. "Señora, we go after her." "No," Grace said, voice brittle steel. "He wants me to chase, that's the trap." "Then what do we do?" Grace holstered her pistol with hands that didn't shake anymore. "We go to the meeting," she said, "but not to sign." She turned, cloak whipping in the cold. "To end it." Up on the ridge, Cole heard the hoofbeats behind him close the gap. He wheeled left, straight into a narrow gulch, and pulled a match from his teeth. He'd been holding it since he smelled the gun oil on the wind. He struck it on his saddle horn, dropped it into the dry brush lining the gulch wall, then slapped the mare forward. The flames took instantly, wind-fed, hungry. Smoke poured behind him in a thick gray curtain. Shots cracked through it, blind. Cole ducked low, broke out the far side, and didn't look back. He still had the evidence. He still had a chance, but not much of one. Grace ran back to the infirmary. June caught her by the sleeve. "What happened?" "They took Lily," Grace said, voice sharp, clipped, "for a signature." June didn't flinch. "You won't sign?" "No." "Then you need more than prayer." Grace knelt beside Emma, brushing a hand along her fever-warm cheek. "I need both," she said. Emma didn't stir. June gripped Grace's shoulder. "You leave this tent. You may not get back before nightfall. Fever could spike." "I know." "You might lose her." Grace closed her eyes, steady as stone. "And if I sign that paper, Lily dies next. Maybe not today, but eventually. In a mine. In a shaft. Somewhere Vane decides." June said nothing. Grace stood. Miguel pressed a rifle into her hand. "Señora, for Lily." Grace took it without hesitation. Outside, the miners slowed to watch her pass. Silent, grim, knowing this wasn't business anymore. This was war. She slung the rifle over her shoulder, pistol at her hip, coat pulled tight against the rising wind. Then she whispered, not to June, not to Miguel, not even to the ridge, to the Lord. Walk with me. And she headed toward the old survey post, where Vane was waiting, where Lily was held, where every choice Grace made would cost blood one way or another. And the truth was already running through the mountains on a half-frozen horse, chased by men who'd killed to bury it. The storm returned as Grace climbed toward the survey post, wind slicing like broken glass. Miguel followed with 2 miners, rifles hidden in their coats. At the ridge crest, she saw them clearly through the blowing snow. Lily, bound at the wrists. Cal Pike, behind her with a revolver. Sheriff Talbot, cold, unreadable. And Clayton Vane, still immaculate in the storm, silver cane gleaming. "Mrs. Carter," Vane called. "Sign, and you walk away with your child." Grace stood firm. "Show me the contract." Talbot opened the folder. Pages fluttered in the wind, neat and legal but rotten underneath. Pike tightened his grip on Lily. "Make it quick." Grace stepped forward slowly. "Release her first." "That's not leverage, Femang," Vane said. "You know the terms." She didn't blink. "Then hurry up." Talbot handed her the pen. Grace lowered it to the paper, then paused. Just long enough. Vane's smile twitched. "Don't try to stall." But Grace wasn't listening to Vane. She was listening to the storm. The rhythm, wind, silence, wind broke suddenly. Footsteps, hard, fast. A voice tore through the whiteout. "Grace, don't!" Cole burst into the clearing, half frozen, bleeding, snow plastered across his coat. "The evidence," he gasped. "It's gone. Sent. Denver has everything. Every murder and every forged survey." Vane's face cracked like wet plaster. Grace dropped the pen into the snow. "I'm not signing." Pike yanked Lily back and cocked his gun. "You sure about that?" Grace fired first. Not at Pike, but at the lantern strung above the ridge. The lantern shattered. Oil fell. Fire exploded across the clearing, smoke blinding half of Vane's men. Pike cursed, stumbling. Miguel and the miners rushed through the smoke. Cole tackled Pike before he could fire, a shot grazing his shoulder. Grace dove through the burning haze, reaching Lily, cutting her free with one sweep of her knife. "Hold on, baby. Mama's here." Vane staggered back, flames licking his coat hem. "Sheriff, kill them!" But Talbot hesitated. If the evidence was truly out, shooting them would only damn him further. His hand froze halfway to his gun. Grace pulled Lily close. Miguel pinned another rider. Snow and flames swirled together in a whirl of light and ash. Cole rose again, wounded but unbroken, revolver in hand, facing Vane across the firelit ridge. And the storm held its breath for the final blow. Firelight clawed through the storm as the clearing broke into chaos. Smoke curled low, stinging eyes, blurring shapes. Grace dragged Lily behind a survey stone, breath sharp, pistol drawn. Cal Pike burst from the smoke first. Wild, coughing, furious. He seized Lily's arm again, yanking her toward the cliff edge. "Come here, girl. Your mama wants you back in pieces." Grace fired once. Pike ducked, dragging Lily closer to the drop, boot heels carving the snow down toward the gorge. One misstep and she'd fall clean into the dark. Then Cole hit him. He slammed into Pike sideways, shoulder first, taking another grazing bullet across the ribs. The shot spun him, but didn't drop him. He grabbed Pike's coat, knuckles white, driving him toward the ridgeline. Pike snarled, jamming the gun toward Cole's throat. "You should have stayed drunk, Hart." Cole answered with a single, brutal punch to the jaw, enough to stagger Pike back, but not enough to break his grip on Lily. Grace moved. She ran low through the smoke, boots slipping. She aimed, steady, careful. But Pike saw her. He hauled Lily up like a shield. "Drop it, Mrs. Carter." Cole didn't wait. He lunged. He took the shot meant for Grace, a clean, tearing wound across his upper arm, then locked both hands around Pike's gun wrist. "Let her go!" The two men wrestled in the snow, boots skidding dangerously close to the cliff edge. Lily screamed behind them. Grace dove, caught her daughter, rolled her clear. Pike twisted free, raising the gun again. Cole drew his own revolver with his left hand. Shaky, bleeding, but sure. One shot, close, final, ending it. Pike toppled backward into the snow, gun falling from his hand. Miguel and the miners rushed the remaining riders as Vane tried to flee through the smoke. Too slow. Miguel caught him by the coat collar and slammed him down hard, pinning him. The contract fell from Vane's pocket, pages scattering across the burning snow like dead leaves. Sheriff Talbot finally lifted his hands, slow, defeated. "Enough," he said. "It's over." Grace held Lily tight, checking every limb, every finger, every breath. Emma was waiting, alive, needing her. Cole staggered toward them, blood soaking his sleeve, breath harsh. He knelt, slow, shaking, and touched the blue doll sticking from Grace's coat. He looked at Lily, then at Emma's mother, and he whispered, voice raw, barely a thread, "Safe. You're safe now." Snow drifted down over all of them, over the fire, over the wreckage, over the end of Vane's reign, and over a man who'd finally stopped running. And so, on that frozen ridge, Grace, her children, and the cowboy who chose redemption finally found the safety they had been denied for far too long. Their journey reminds us that even in the harshest winters of life, kindness can break through like a lantern in the dark. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your wisdom matters here. Please consider giving this video a like. And if you enjoy stories of courage and second chances, feel free to subscribe. We'd be honored to have you with us for the next tale.